had a picture of you.
Oh, but you're next to me, that's more powerful picture.
Good afternoon. I am the Reverend Nelson B. Rivers III, the Vice President of Religious Affairs and External Relations of the National Action Network, and also the pastor of the Charity Missionary Baptist Church here in North Charleston, South Carolina. I'm also joined today by South Carolina State Senator Marlon Kimpson, J. Elliott Summey, the Chairman of Charleston County Council, Mayor Joseph P. Riley of the City of Charleston, and Mayor Keith Summey, also of the City of North Charleston. We also have representatives of the local NAACP, Ms. Dot Scott, Reverend Joseph Darby. We have members of the General Assembly who have agreed to be with us, as well as members of the North Charleston County Council, and many members of the clergy and other friends who are committed to this effort. We come today to announce that tomorrow we will have a rally at the state capitol at 11 a.m., just before the General Assembly goes into session to deal with the budget. And at that rally, in a united voice, we will call for the removal of the Confederate Battle Flag. This is not a new fight for us, but it is a new fight in terms of one voice speaking together tomorrow. The time has come to remove this symbol of hate and division from our state capitol. The time has come for the General Assembly to do what it ought to have done a long time ago, which is to remove this symbol of division and even terrorism to some. The Confederate battle flag is a symbol of the worst of South Carolina's past and should be moved to a place of historical significance and no longer in front of the capital of all citizens of this great state. Last Friday night, I called on members of the General Assembly to act to take down the Confederate battle flag as a way to honor the memories of the 9 innocent lives lost to an act of hatred and terrorism at Mother Emanuel last Wednesday night. What better way to honor the late Reverend and Senator Clemente Pinckney and those who were killed by someone who adored the Confederate battle flag and thought it to be symbolic of white supremacy and hate. Our friend and brother, the Reverend Pinckney, should not lie in state in the shadow of a flag whose meaning apparently motivated a killer to take his life. The General Assembly should vote tomorrow to remain in session and to take up the vote on the removing the flag until 2/3 of the majority has been reached to remove it. We will now hear from Mayor Riley, who has to leave, and then Chairman Summey, Senator Kimpson, Mayor Summey, Reverend Darby, and others. I want to thank them again. This came about over the last just couple of days. In fact, we talked to Mayor Riley this morning, and he's on his way to Columbia anyway. We have much work left to be done, but the time is right, the people are ready, and we need to act. Mayor Riley.
Thank you very much, Reverend Rivers, and thank everyone who is here, and certainly Mayor Keith Summey. We're in this is his city hall, and wonderful, normal, courteous hospitality and community support that Mayor Summey gives our region and our state. The time has come for the Confederate battle flag to move from a public position in front of the state capitol to a place of history. The State Museum, the Confederate Relic Museum. In the museum, it is then there as a piece of history, along with other components of the Civil War and all the roles that people in this state, citizens and soldiers, had in that. It's a historical flag, a piece of history, and it belongs in a history museum. The Confederate battle flag, years and years ago, was appropriated as a symbol of hate. And therefore, the Confederate battle flag, at best in front of the state capitol, sends mixed messages to those who want to understand it as a part of history, the war, and there are many complicated facets of that, of course. That's one thing. But when it is so often used as a symbol of hate, it has been, of defiance to civil rights and to equal rights and equality among races, a symbol used by the Klan, a symbol you saw at every protest event during times of integration and racial progress, then in front of the state capitol, for those who harbor any of those kinds of feelings, and we hope they are very few, it nonetheless sends the wrong message. The grounds of the state capitol belong to every citizen of South Carolina. It is quintessentially the most public place in our state. I respectfully ask the General Assembly, reasonably tired and weary of their long session, to take the extra step and attend to this unfinished business and move this flag to an appropriate historical context. And among other things that will do, and this is, I know, has overwhelming support of the citizens of South Carolina, in every region, in every community. They're ready for this to happen. But this act will do something very personal and very important. And that is to all the brokenhearted in this community and around our country, and to those grieving family members that are now trying to prepare themselves for the funeral of their loved one killed in the sanctuary of their church by a bigot who carried the Confederate Battle Flag as an emblem, a sign of his. That in this time of huge, most palpable sorrow, that we can have this act of encouragement and understanding and love and support. Take away Mr. Roof's symbol, a misguided idea of racial superiority and bigotry. Mm-hmm. Take it away from him and all like him, and give the front of our state capitol equally, fairly to every citizen of South Carolina. Thank you.
First of all, let me just note the number of leaders we have in this room. We have people from the religious community. We have people from local government. We have community activists and elected officials. That sends a strong message to the governor and the General Assembly that the community groups and the people that we represent are asking for us to do our business when we return on tomorrow. I have placed a call this morning to the leadership of the Senate and served notice that there is a growing chorus of senators, South Carolina state senators, that are interested in dealing with this issue before we leave session. Now, procedurally, where we are is the official session ended in June, and we are coming back tomorrow under a limited, what we call in South Carolina, sine die resolution to finish the business of the budget. But as Reverend Rivers just correctly stated, it requires a 2/3 vote in the Senate, and I believe in the House. There are a number of House members, Representative Stavronakis and Representative Gilliard are both here. But it requires a 2/3 vote to amend that resolution so that we can take the issue up. It's very, very important that your elected officials, particularly House members and senators, hear from you. If you are in favor of removing the Confederate flag from the State House, in front of the State House, please call your elected officials, because it is the power of the General Assembly, not the governor, but the power of the General Assembly to do so. I would say that to the extent the governor does come out in support of the flag being removed to the State House, we welcome her leadership on this issue. She is a powerful voice, as evidenced by her reelection. But as we move forward tomorrow and the next few weeks under the current sine die resolution, it's the General Assembly, 46 in the House, Senate, and 124 in the House, who has the power to bring this matter forward for official business before those respective bodies. It's time to end division in this state. It's time to move forward into the 21st century. There are many who have cautioned us to wait, but those people are part of the status quo. And what we have to do is galvanize and use this window of opportunity in light of this horrible tragedy and come away with a solution and an agenda to rid this state of hate, division, and racism. And I think that ridding the flag from the front of the State House is a start. But let me underscore this. It will not solve the racial divide in South Carolina. We need a positive discourse on the problems that continue to plague our state, including economic opportunities for all. And that's where a number of our colleagues want to focus after we rid the state of this symbol. I want to applaud the NAACP and Mayor Joe Riley and all others who have been out front on this issue much longer than many of us, including myself, who just got elected to the General Assembly 2 years ago. We are working on behalf of all the citizens in South Carolina. Thank you.
Chairman Sonny.
Thank you. First of all, I think we should really recognize the fact that we have so many different folks from different organizations, whether they be political or community organizations. And as Senator Kempson said, the NAACP, Ms. Scott, Reverend Darby, Mayor Riley, they've been doing this for a long, long time. I think the mayor's march to Columbia was in 2005, I think. Maybe longer than that. It's 2000. It's been a long time. My U.S. history teacher in the 7th grade was a man I served with on county council named Henry Darby. And Henry taught me that in order to know where you're going, you got to understand where you've been. We have a great history in South Carolina and in Charleston. We've got a lot of great things that have happened over the course of our existence, but we've got some not so great things too. And we can't hide from our history. It needs to be told, but it needs to be told appropriately. We have young minds in this state. I've got two of my own. They're 5 and 3. And at some point, when they're in the 5th, 6th, 7th grade, they're going to take a field trip to the state capitol. And they're going to tour their home government, and they're going to learn all about how government works. And when they get there, just for those young, impressionable minds to see what has become a symbol of hate to the world, as we saw last Wednesday, can be very damaging. A young and impressionable person who saw things and had this mental state that could be impressioned. And we saw that the Confederate flag, when you go and you read the things that he's written and understand the things that he was thinking, he had a skewed sense of history, and partially because it sends a message with that flag sitting there that we're okay with what it symbolizes. It should be put in a place of honor somewhere in a museum. Anyone who died in any war or any conflict protecting the state of South Carolina, whether you agreed with the motives that they were protecting them for, they have a place in our history. Most of those folks that died in the Civil War protecting South Carolina were poor folks who were misled in some ways. The time is now. We'd like to have waited till everything had settled down, but to be honest, what better way to honor the 9 folks that died last Wednesday than by making sure that their families know that something extremely positive could come out of their deaths. It's time for South Carolina to move on. It's time for us to put our history behind us. It's time for the world to know that we aren't the stereotypical South Carolinians that people think we are, and that we are here embracing all folks. This entire week since this has happened is a great example of what Charleston and this community means to the world. We know how to communicate. We know how to come together. We don't live in a perfect place, but we want to have that perfect place. We want to strive for it to be that way. And communication is the only key to do that. And by bringing down the flag in front of the state capitol, that's the first step, major step, in making sure that those lines of communication are open between all people. Thank you.
Let me-
If there is one city in this country that I think is a collage of every aspect of life, it'd be the city of North Charleston. And I'm very proud of the fact, as I called my council members last night and told them they were invited to be here, that 7 of the 10 are here. 1 is out of state or would be here as well. So when we look at the 2/3 majority rule, you've got 2/3 of an entire city that has been elected to represent the community that says the time has come. I think if there was a poll that was taken across this state, 2/3 of the people polled would say the time has come. Put the flag in its place of history where it deserves to be, but do not fly it in the face of people who it has a separate meaning for. You know, I think we have demonstrated in the last several months, as a community, we do come together and we do work together. Do we have a long way to go? Heck yeah. We still have a lot to do to heal relationships within our community. But I think the symbol of taking down the flag would be a great step forward in that communication as we work together to try to make this country that we live in and the state that we live in our individual cities, a better place for all people to live, work, and play together. And because of that, I can tell you that the city of North Charleston encourages the legislators to move forward and move forward now. I think the more we wait, the longer we wait, the idea could get cold. We don't need for it to be cold. As I sat yesterday and watched the people go up and down the Cooper River Bridge, I saw such a collage of individuals, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, all meeting together, hugging, grasping each other, looking for a way to feel comfort in their lives. And I can tell you, I was moved, I was touched, because we have an opportunity to start a dialogue that will bring all of us into a better life. The two little boys he talked about earlier, and my daughter's two kids, all 6 and under. What are we going to do to make sure that they don't see color? They don't see what ethnic background you're from. You look at each other as human beings. There's not one person in here that if you had a lung transplant that you needed and they brought the lung in, you wouldn't ask who it came out of. You would take that lung. We have a lot in common. And we need to remember that I don't understand why God made us different. I don't really care. Inside, he made us all alike. And in relationships, we're all alike. And we need to move forward. I was told, my God, you've got an election in November. Why are you stepping up and doing something? You're going to make a lot of people mad. I don't think so. And if I do, what the heck? The bottom line is, as leaders of a community, we should step up to the plate to do that which is right and that which is just. And our goal should be to leave this world better than we found it, and I think this is a step in that direction.
Thank you. Reverend.
I will speak first. I'm going to speak very briefly and for 2 reasons. First, to represent all the women, and also to take this opportunity to personally introduce Reverend Joseph Darby, who will speak on behalf of the NAACP. The fight for the removal of the Confederate flag started prior to my 14-year of tenure as the NAACP president of Charleston branch. But since that time, and with working with Reverend Darby, the message has been clear, it's been consistent, and it has been eloquent in what he has been putting out there as to what the NAACP stand has been. And at this time, I'll let Reverend Darby speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me simply join in what my president said and thank all of those persons who are coming on board with something that began 16 years ago when the NAACP South Carolina Conference first petitioned the National, and the National agreed to impose economic sanctions on the state of South Carolina. We managed at that time to get the flag halfway down, but it's still in the wrong place, not only because it's an insult, but because the top or the front of a public building should be reserved for the flags of existing sovereign governments. There is no sovereign Confederate States of America, so that flag should not be there. It is sad that it took a tragedy, the loss of 9 lives, to bring this to the light again. But maybe that's the ray of sunshine in their loss. Maybe this is the time that something substantive will happen. NAACP is committed to make that happen. We also believe that this should be the beginning of a dialogue, not only in our city, but in our state and our nation about issues of race, because there is still deep-seated chronic division that goes under the radar in America, in South Carolina, in North Charleston, and in Charleston. What better way to say we're going to deal with that than take down a flag that was flown at a time when the civil rights movement was coming into power? When you take that flag down, you create a discussion point. When you take that flag down, you say that people of goodwill are willing to move forward together. When you take that flag down, you make a positive statement, not as black folk, not as white folk, but as Americans. And we need to make that statement as citizens. We are thankful that there are others who are now ready to make that statement as well. I respect the right of those who cherish their history to cherish their history, as we all do. I would encourage them to think about how wonderful it will be to have that history in a historic context. I encourage them to continue the private displays as well in their homes, on their vehicles. I would encourage their display in their places of business as well, so that they can celebrate their heritage in a proper way. But this is a good day because the Civil War began in Charleston, South Carolina. We want the Civil War to end starting in Charleston, South Carolina.
Let me, as we hear from any others who want to speak and then answer your questions, I need to set the narrative of how we got here. But before that, I want to look into your cameras and make an invitation. All citizens of South Carolina who want the Confederate battle flag to be removed from in front of the Capitol should meet us tomorrow at 11 a.m. So when members of the General Assembly come to work, they'll be told who they work for and why they are there. We want the flag taken down. It's no more simple than that. We want it down. It's way past due, and tomorrow is the time. We don't know why divine providence arranges things in certain ways, but we believe that we now find ourselves in that place where we can decide which side of history do we want to be on. We want to be on the 1865 side or the 2015 side. December 6th, it will be 150 years since slavery legally ended in America. That's when the 13th Amendment was finally signed into law. And we should not go into the next year holding fast to a symbol of what it was like for all people, but especially my people, in 1865. As Reverend Darby alluded to, in 1999, I was the National Field Director for the NAACP. Reverend Darby was at the state conference, Lonnie Randolph, Dwight James. We were all at Sullivan's Island with Mayor Riley. And we walked off the podium, and I raised the interrogatory or the rhetorical question with them. We were honoring Africans who were dead. And I said, how hypocritical is it to honor the dead Africans and insult the living African Americans every day by flying that flag? And I said to Reverend Darby, to Lonnie Randolph, and to Dwight James and James Goldman, the time has come for us to see whether we can get sanctions endorsed by the national NAACP. That was before the convention in New York. We went to the convention in New York, and the convention unanimously called for sanctions. Immediately, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which was scheduled to have their convention at what was then the Francis Marion Hotel, canceled their convention. And like a domino, organization after organization after organization canceled their convention. So we adopted a resolution. And others said it would never happen. In fact, I had an interesting conversation with then Senator McConnell in the hallway talking to Governor Jim Hodges. And he told me, Mr. Rivers, that flag will never come down. And I told him, Senator, I'm from the state of never. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. And all my life, you told me what I never would do. But I'm a witness. You said we'd never go to the Citadel, but we do. We never ride the front of the bus, but we do. We never go into the movie theaters, but we do. And just because it's not now does not mean it will not ever be. It might not happen tonight or tomorrow, but as sure as there's a God in heaven, the day will come when the flag will come down. January, 50,000 people came all over South Carolina, the largest civil rights demonstration in our history, to say with one voice, take it down. And then we got swindled. Somebody cut a deal on us that we never agreed to. Now, I'm offended every time somebody said there was a compromise. A compromise requires compromise from all the parties. You can't be the one who called the sanctions and have somebody cut a deal that you're not a part of and say that's a compromise. That simply is tyranny of the majority. We refused to accept it then, refused to accept it now. How did we get here? After Friday night, Chairman Summey called me and said, Reverend, I'm ready to march, to lead a march. I said, where? And for what? To take the flag down. So I called Senator Kempson to find out what the process was, so that whenever they come back, we would then be able to ask the General Assembly. So finally, the beauty of this moment is this. 2 Republican members of the General Assembly said they would offer bills in December to be enacted in January to take the flag down. But somebody had a different timing in mind. They don't have to wait another day. Tomorrow, leaders can be leaders. They can do what they told us it would take an act of God to do. Someone said yesterday on Facebook, do you think God wanted 9 people to die so the flag could be removed? And I said, no, God didn't kill them. And God didn't put up the flag. But I do know that God knows this. It takes often death to make people do the right thing. And since we cannot reverse the death of Senator Pinckney and Reverend Doctor and those others, at least we can make the death mean something. We should not go another week with that symbol of hate that was adored by the man who killed them to sit in front of the capital of all the people. It's the people's house. It should not belong to just a few. It should belong to all of us. And all the symbols that fly in front of the people's house should represent all of the people. Anybody else? Representative Stavronakis.
Thank you all for being here. I'm Representative Leon Stavronakis from right here in Charleston. You know, Wednesday night when the horrific news reached me, I thought to myself, and I'm sure a lot of other people rightfully did as well, how could this happen in 2015? Rightfully ask yourselves the question, I'm sure many did like I did, how much progress have we really made? And I'm pleased to report that the answer to that question came very swiftly, because unlike in the years prior to my birth and even while I was a young child, Americans of color did not have to sit and watch racist murder go unprosecuted and unpunished. Our mayor and our police chief went out and found this evil killer in less than 24 hours. And unlike previous years when these things were far more commonplace, Americans of color did not have to lay down in the street and get beaten and killed in order to get the attention of the American public and the people of South Carolina to injustice. As you have seen, starting immediately, the people of Charleston and the people of America have proven how much we've changed. They have responded with love and compassion, with outrage to these events and to the motive behind these events. That this kind of racism still exists and is acted upon in our community is an outrage. And our community has responded to show how different we are. So really only one question remains. The rest of us have proven how much we've changed. And now the question is, how much has the General Assembly changed? Okay? And so it's time for the General Assembly to make a very simple choice. Very simple choice. Whose message wins here? The message of an evil, racist murderer, or the rest of us? Black and white, all face and backgrounds together, calling out for a symbol, rightly or wrongly, that if racist killers adopt it as their own, as their motivation for killing people of color, people who are different than they are in our state, then we have to act on that. It was my hope that a schedule for acting on this, which is certainly an uphill challenge, but very possible, very doable, would have emerged before today, so that we could focus this week entirely on laying to rest those who have been lost and allowing their families to focus entirely on celebrating the memory of those beautiful lives that were snuffed out by hate. But that schedule didn't come, and so I'm here today, along with a lot of other folks, to demand it and to say, we're not going to wait until January of 2016. We shouldn't have had to wait until June of 2015. The time to act is now. The General Assembly has the ability to act. And again, the question simply is, are we willing or are we not? I'm here to say I'm willing. I believe things are moving in the direction of action. I'm cautiously optimistic that you will see something happen this week to either make the change or to set a schedule for the change to happen. And I call on all leaders in both parties to step up and realize that the politics of the past need to be in the past. This is about South Carolina today and South Carolina tomorrow. I had to explain to my 10-year-old daughter why this happened, what this is even about. And like only a 10-year-old can, she said, why in the world would someone kill another person just because of what color they are? How do I answer that question for her without mentioning the flag when the person that did the killing was waving the flag? It's impossible to separate the two now, and so we must act. Again, thank you all for being here. Thanks all these leaders. Reverend Rivers, your comments at TD Arena, your passion, and your words, and again here today are a source of great inspiration for a lot of us. I marched with Mayor Riley over a decade ago, and we're ready to take up this fight again right now. So thank you all.
I want to bring up the last three speakers, Representative Gilliard, former County Council Chairman and Present Council Member Teddy Pryor, and then Elder James Johnson, the State President of the National Action Network. I wanted to add that we talked to Reverend Sharpton this morning, and he came Thursday, and he asked me then, how long do you think it will take to take the flag down? And I have to admit to you, I told him, I don't know. We've been fighting so long, I forgot where we are. And then Mayor Riley raised it at the TD Arena. And when I spoke, frankly, Representative Stevenakis was shocked that the majority of people who stood up were white. And they said in a resounding voice, the time had come. And so Reverend Sharpton and I agreed this morning that the National Action Network should be represented at the rally tomorrow, and that we should go forward, and whether all come or none come, we're going to be there saying to the General Assembly, the time has come. Member of the General Assembly, Representative Wendell Gilliard, who needs no introduction, that you all know, Councilman Teddy Pryor, and then Elder James Johnson, then we'll take your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Rivers. It's a saying that evil only triumphs when good men and good women do nothing. Now, just coming off the phone with a discussion with the Reverend Jesse Jackson, I've asked him to come here because he's seen as a son of the South. This is his hometown. And he told me that he's praying about it, and he wants to come, and we look forward to his visit this week. Now, back in the year 2000, and many of you heard the story about the March on Columbia. Well, you're looking at the author of the resolution. Back in the year 2000, when I served on city council, I knew about the history of the South, being a son of the South. I knew that if I had ever got elected as a public servant, not a politician, that the first thing I wanted to attack is to bring the reality out to the world that in South Carolina, the Confederate flag and all its hatred had to be brought to the forefront so the world can understand what we're living under in the state of South Carolina. But I also knew in the resolution that if we had galvanized the community, and we did, under the leadership of the NAACP and all the other civil rights organizations, including Rainbow Push. Mayor Riley called me in his office, and he stated to me, he said, "Councilman, you know what you're about to do?" I told him yes. And he said, "You ready for it?" I said, "Yes." Well, we prepared the county, we prepared the state, and we did what we had to do back then. Now, after we did that, 2 years later, I decided to even further the problem in the state of South Carolina. Many of you don't know the resolution that I created back in 2003. It designated that the fact that the KKK was seen as a terrorist organization. And the world news came in Charleston. The Klang's march, the Nazi group's march, the Aryan Nation's march, the threats came and we overcame. We got the resolution passed. I tell you that to say this. We can make change literally overnight in government because we have the power of the people to do it. But far too many times when we have tragedies in our state and in our country, we go back to business as usual. And then we have to depend on organizations as such. NAACP, Rainbow Push, the National Action Network, Coalition for Change, Black Lives Matter. I could go on and on and on. But I can tell you this, the flag will come down because we all believe that. And we all understand that. Now today, the governor will have a press conference, and I can stand here like these ladies and gentlemen who've been a part of this movement in the state of South Carolina and had to endure a lot. I can stand here today to tell you, she's going to change her mind. She's going to change her mind, and that flag will come down. And when the flag comes down, then and only then, it will be a great day in the state of South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Rivers. I'm going to be short because a lot has been said, and I agree with all that's been said. But we all have a lot of enthusiasm here today, and I hope that enthusiasm carries us until this job is done. You know, it's a biblical saying, faith without work is dead. Well, we all have a lot of faith, but we're going to have to put some work behind it like we're doing here today to move this forward. But not only at the state capitol, we have other institutions that actually do fly this. We can go a mile and a half down the road to a Summerall Chapel where you will see this flag down at the Citadel. Councilman Henry Darby, 1 year ago, came to me as chair and says, "Chairman, we have to do something about this because I've been getting a lot of complaints and calls from constituents." I said, "Mr. Darby, I'm with you." We went down, we met with General Rosa, and we met down with the head of the Board of Trustees. We were told that the flag had to be put back in the Summerall Chapel because the Board of Trustees would sue the Citadel, and it would not come down because of the Heritage Act. Well, I'm here to tell you, we need to start here local as well as march on to Columbia, because it still is an insult for someone to have to go into a religious institution and see such a flag flying. So I am honored and happy to be here today and so proud of everybody that's here. But this has been a long struggle and a long fight, and I hope no one will take no personal gain in saying, "I did this, I did it." It is we. Because when you begin to say, I, you forget about everybody else. It is we, the people, up here today, that has made this happen and will make this happen. My constituents has been calling. My constituent has been saying, "We are behind you. We want it removed." Those 9 folks should be remembered, and how better way to remember them by removing the flag. So I wish we can take all the I's out and put the we in, and let's move forward.
Thank you. My name is Vic Rawl. I'm a member of Charleston County Council. I have served in some capacity in government since 1977. I'm probably one of the elders up here. Most everyone up here is a friend. The bottom line is this. We are doing something or trying to do something that is absolutely long overdue. I applaud and agree with everything that everybody has said. The one thing they have left out, however, is that hate speech under the First Amendment and gun rights under the Second Amendment in combination make these kinds of events occur. The worst thing I can tell you about my personality and my thinking is, unfortunately, I am not surprised. And that's a scary thought from someone who has spent 70 years in the Charleston area. I'm absolutely amazed at the response. I think it's phenomenal. However, let me just say one or two things, and I'll back it up. If you want to look at what has happened and why it's happened, read The Age of Lincoln. Read The Deadly Censorship, which dealt with the killing of a newspaper editor in Columbia by a Tillman, Pitchfork Ben Tillman's nephew. Read something that all of you need to read in context with what we are doing here today. The book is called Others Unknown by Jones, who was in fact the defense lawyer for Timothy McVeigh. Will it happen again? Yes. How many times does it have to happen? 90 people a day are killed in this country with firearms, and yet we're led to believe that we should be afraid of ISIS. Explain that to me. I am tired, just like everyone up here is tired of being controlled by fear, and it needs to stop. Tomorrow's effort, which I will be more than happy to join, as I have done in the past, is a first step in that effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We want to thank all of you and then take any questions you may have, and then proceed. Harp.
Reverend Governor Haley, 4 o'clock, the tones went out. She's formulating a plan to take the flag down. We know that for a fact. Reaction.
Well, it's a good thing, but you know, I've been at this a long time. We had a plan in 2000, and the plan was to remove the flag from everywhere. We went into negotiations about where it would go, and before we knew it, the thing was out front with protection. Took 2/3 vote to get it down. So plans don't impress me.
I've got a question for you. First of all, I need something for those of us who aren't from here. Every single person who's spoken, not all of you said your name. Can you please come back to the camera, give us your name so we have it right? Every person who just spoke. Starting with you.
I'm Reverend Nelson B. Rivers III, and I am the Vice President of Religious Affairs for the National Action Network, NAN, under the leadership of Reverend Sharpton. I'm also the pastor of Charity Missionary Baptist Church, which is about 1 mile from here.
I'm Elliot Summy. I'm the chairman of Charleston County Council.
I'm Marlon Kimpson. I'm Marlon Kimpson, M-A-R-L-O-N, Kimpson, K-I-M-P-S-O-N. I'm the state senator for District 42, the place of the church shooting.
I am Dot Scott, president of the Charleston branch of the NAACP.
I'm Keith Summy, the mayor of the city of North Charleston, and his daddy.
Yeah.
I think I said my name, but I certainly didn't spell it, and I'm sure you need help with it. It's Stavrinakis. It's Leon Stavrinakis, state representative in the South Carolina House of Representatives from here in Charleston.
Is that wrong? Oh, come on.
My name is Alfred Victor Rawl. I have been a House member, a Workers' Compensation Commissioner, a National Guard officer, a Circuit Court judge, and I presently serve as Vice Chairman of Charleston County Council. Thank you.
Teddy Pryor, that's T-E-D-D-I-E. Forget the Y, because a lot of people spell it wrong. Senior, former chairman of County Council, and now serve on County Council and represent District 5. That's T-E-D-D-I-E.
Okay, and Reverend Joseph A. Darby spoke. He is Vice President of the Charleston branch of the NAACP, first Vice President, and also presiding elder of the Beaufort District of the AME Church.
And if y'all need someone to introduce Mayor Riley, you need to find a new line of work probably.
State Representative Wendell Gilliard, representing District 111, and that's WENDELLGILLIARD.
We have our local president of the National Action Network, Brother Tyler, and of course, everyone should know Elder James Johnson is now state president. Yes, sir. Then I got a question over here. Yes, sir.
I got two. First is a procedural question. So tomorrow, what you're hoping is that the legislature will continue in session or bring this up? I'm kind of confused as to
Senator Kimson can speak to that.
So where we are, technically, session ended in June, early June, June 4th. We are coming back because we did not send the budget to the governor under a procedure called sine die resolution. And that is where we come back to discuss a limited purpose. But sine die can be amended with 2/3 of the vote to incorporate new issues.
So then you would need to then again have another vote to bring this specific issue. Is that correct?
Correct. So we got to pass sine die with 2/3, and that sets the calendar for the debate on the bill.
And then after the debate, of course, vote on the issue.
And that will require 2/3, which is different because normally bills require a majority. But in the 2000, I won't refer to it as a compromise but in the 2000 Heritage Act, the legislation called for 2/3. So of this issue, well, there may be other issues, but this issue I know.
And now my last question is the larger one for all of you. I'm Steve Sazami with Agency News. I have been working in this region for nearly 20 years, and I have watched this state debate this issue over all these years. I've watched your various governors deal with this. I've watched all of the conversations and the rallies and so on and so forth. Is this a reality? Are we really being honest here that we can get the state legislature in South Carolina to find 2/3 of a vote 3 separate times to make this happen? Is this for real?
Well, I'm optimistic. There are a number of new legislators in both respective bodies. The third possibility that I didn't mention, we could always pass a bill that would change the 2/3 provision by a simple majority. And so that's always an option on the table. But I think we witnessed something last week that had not occurred in the history of South Carolina. Most recently, we witnessed another horrific event that did not occur when Representative Gilliard and I filed the body camera bill in December. Many people said that it couldn't be done. We witnessed a police officer shooting in April, and the bill passed in the Senate 43-3, with 43 voting aye, and in the House unanimously, 112 votes. And so I think we have seen a transformation in a generation where elected officials will listen to the people, and that's why it's so important for the people to call their elected officials. In addition, the business community speaks volumes. I was fortunate to participate in a conference call among business leaders this morning. I think there will be a plan rolled out from the business community. But to be sure, we're having a rally tomorrow on the State House steps, and I think everyone should come to that rally to express their position.
The reality is, though, that there is a difference between skepticism and realism. And in South Carolina, they've taught me to be a skeptical realist. And what got me yesterday, that where the slaves came in, my ancestors, there were many times, many more than 9 dead on those ships. And yesterday, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 people, overwhelming majority white, came together and said, for the first time to me, that Black Lives Matter. Yesterday, that said that this community said that the 9 people who died, their lives mattered so much that people of all colors linked arms across the bridge. But I'm a servant and a movement person. It affected me. Now, if it affects the General Assembly, that's when my realism turned to skepticism. But I'm helped by this. Senator Kempson said this. When the body cameras bill came up for the hearing, I was prepared. I went to the hearing prepared for having been talked to death. And when it came out of committee with Republican support, I said, something's going on around here that's never happened before. And then the thing became law. So when that can happen, yes, this can happen. When the governor is not coming out without standing on some sure footing. She's not going to make a dramatic, out here by myself move. She has some assurances that something is about to happen. But we didn't know she was going to meet. And frankly, we didn't care. We thought the time was now, and we were told we should wait until after Friday. But we were also told that the General Assembly is going to meet tomorrow, the only time they're guaranteed to be in session. After that, they can go home. We can't let them meet without hearing from the people. We hope, we pray, but as I said to Senator McConnell, if it's not this time, it is going to come down. Yes? Yes? How are you?
Some defenders of the flag say it's a harmless symbol of Southern heritage. How do you respond to that?
Well, they must be living someplace else. They're not living in South Carolina. That's a delusional. That's the history of the flag. In fact, the person who designed the flag has a statement that says it was designed to maintain the supremacy of whites over the coloreds and other people. That's his statement. That's not mine. There is no debate. I think it's stipulated, even among them, that the flag came out of a protest. The Confederate Battle Flag that flies in front of my state house was never used or adopted by the Confederacy as their universal symbol. It was adopted and used by Nathan Bedford Forrest, who created the Klan and others, to make a simple statement that just because the war was over, the rebels continue to fight. What we say in the church is that God won the war, but the rebels continue to fight the battle. That's Satan. And so for us, we know that the battle will not stop. But for them to tell you that the flag does not represent hatred, oppression, discrimination, means that either they're flatly lying or sorely misinformed, because the truth of the matter is, this last week, Reverend Rutledge, raise your hand. Rabbi Alexander, raise your hand. We were on a bus together. We took a tour. We called the Freedom Road Tour. We went to Ebenezer in Atlanta. Then we went to Selma to cross the bridge. And then we went to Memphis to the museum. And everywhere we went, when it was death, oppression, celebration of hate, and destruction of life, the one thing that was consistent was the flag. Everywhere we went, the flag represented it. And so when we came back home, and even if it does, as it did, as I said to one of the guys the other day who told me that it was about heritage, not hate, I said, well, your heritage is hate. Because if you call that a part of your heritage, then you have a heritage of hate. Because the flag represents hate, hate of other, especially me as the other. And I'm not going to have them tell me that it's raining when I'm standing outside and know they're spitting on me.
When the late Reverend was a friend of yours, how does the removal of this symbol honor his life?
If you listen to him speak, and it's so sad, we were together at the body camera signing, standing behind Governor Haley, and I ended up being dead center behind Governor Haley. I moved over to ask Senator Pinckney, would you come stand a little, and Senator, you can be in the center of the shot, because I think that you ought to be framing the shot and not me. And when we got through, we talked about our next step. And he was making the comment about how shocked he was that the bill passed so fast. When Representative Pinckney became a House member in '96, I talked to him, teasing him about the trajectory he was on because he was moving so fast. And then as a pastor, then he became a senator. And I said to him, I said, man, I wish you were a senator last year. It would have been a tremendous upgrade, and we would have got at least one vote against the compromise that we needed in the Senate. We didn't get any from folk who look like you. So in our last conversation, it was friendly and jovial and teasing about what it's like to pastor and to serve in the General Assembly. So when I found out that he was among those, I I was on the bus and I said, "Where is Clemente?" And I just knew he wasn't there. And Mayor Summey called me personally about 3 o'clock in the morning your time, 2 o'clock in Alabama. I said, "Reverend, I want you to know that Clemente was in there too." That's all he had to say. And everything shifted. Nothing was the same. And I had another good friend, Reverend Dupain, doctor. She was the last one I heard that was confirmed. And we had just been together talking about her ordination in the AME church. And to have them tell me that she was gone too. It made it personal, but I don't think they had to die to make this happen. And I pray, I wish it hadn't happened. But now that it is our reality, it should not be in vain.
A question for the three state lawmakers in this freeway. I just was looking at the law itself that talks about the two-thirds meeting and so on and so forth. As I read the law, another provision is that the law specifically protects people who want to bring the Confederate flag to the Capitol grounds and hold it and wear it. Is there any talk about that? Because you see where, the law that as I read it is really protective of the right of that flag being displayed by a person.
Sure. And I would say this, and again, I was not in the State House at the time, but, people have First Amendment rights. And whether somebody wants on his or her own person display the symbol, that's one thing. But what we're talking about is displaying the symbol on an official governmental facility and institution, an institution in front of the Capitol that makes the law of this state.
If you go Google the NAACP resolution of 1999, we were very careful to say that this was about sovereign position. People are free to use the flag anywhere they want to. Make it your bed pillow for all we care. We just don't want it in an official position in front of the Capitol that represents all the people. That's an outrage. There's nothing to do about whether you wear it on your patch, or whether you wear it on a lapel. That's your right. I want you to have the right to wear stuff you like, because I'm pressing on, I can wear the stuff I like, even if it's not in good taste. But the truth of the matter is that was never an issue. The issue always was, and they knew what the issue is, that flies in a sovereign position and it purports to represent the citizens of the state, and it does not. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Meg Kennard of the Associated Press. If this effort this week going into next week does not bring the flag down, what is your strategy for coming next if this is all just
To tell you the truth, my prayer is for South Carolina that they'll do what North Charleston did with the Walter Scott indictment, charge, and incarceration. That left nothing else for anybody else to say. It closed the book. So South Carolina had a chance to close the book on this discussion. If they don't, this I can promise you, that if they don't do it this week, they are looking forward to Stevie Wonder, Beyonce, Jay-Z, and the whole entertainment world will be descending upon South Carolina because this issue has reached that level. It is the place where folks say, "Are you kidding me?" The sanctions they keep saying that don't work, and we know they do. We have folk, I promise you, are poised to announce they're not coming to South Carolina to tour, family reunions. They're not coming to South Carolina to do business. They aren't coming. They're just waiting on the call that says, don't come, because they refuse to change. But why not follow the example of North Charleston, even Charleston apprehension of the criminal? Do it yourself. Leadership should not be having someone from outside force you to do what is right. You should do it yourself. So South Carolina has a chance now to do something it does very rarely, the right thing on its own. There's almost nothing they've done in terms of civil rights that was not coerced or forced by the federal government or by litigation. Now is the chance for this state to show that the paradigm has shifted and that South Carolina is prepared to do the right thing without having folk march from all over the world. And trust me, they're ready to come. The same with 10,000 folk out on the bridge. And they just live here. All we have to do is say, they won't do it. We need your help. Come on. Buses will be rolling. And tomorrow, you don't have to wait. 11 a.m., we're going to be there. We invite you to be there. We invite everyone to come. This is a peaceful but powerful way for citizens to show that government responds to them. They can no longer say it's not a serious conversation. The governor will not be able to say anymore that when she goes speak to a CEO or leader of a company, they will not talk about the flag. I can promise you. The next time this governor goes to talk about any CEO, to any CEO, someone will bring up the flag. Now they can bring it up commending her in the state, you did the right thing, congratulations. Or they can bring it up, why did you have to be forced by thousands of people coming to your state to do what you should have done without force at all? We'll find out. Anybody else? Well, I don't officially represent the NAACP anymore. I got my membership, got my life membership, but Sister Scott, President Scott can speak to you.
Well, when the flag comes down, the sanction ceases. I would think so.
Yeah, since we helped write the resolution that did it, she's right that the resolution is written that it's only in place as long as the flag flies. The day the flag comes down, the resolution comes down.
Sanction comes.
Well, the sanctions are enacted by NAACP resolution adopted by our convention. And by their convention, the convention is the place where policy is made. But the policy was set that as long as the flag flies, sanctions are in place. So when the flag no longer flies, the sanctions are no longer in place. And it would be a great time to do it because we're just a week away from National Action Network's policy forum in D.C., NAACP convention a week later in Philadelphia. And so we have a chance to have a different subject to be talked about. But I can assure you that if the flag doesn't come down now, they won't be able to walk away and say we won't talk about it again until January. That won't happen.
Well, we're going to wrap this up with our questions.
One more gentleman over there.
Yep.
One comment. I'm Ed Bryant. I'm President North Charleston, NAACP. I just want to add that the Supreme Court has just turned down the Confederate flag, particularly being on the Texas license plate. And not only that, Clarence Thomas voted for the Confederate flag not to be displayed on the Texas license plate.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
Yeah, this must be a new day.
It's a new day.
Thank you very much.